I want y'all to listen to this. This is one day before the day of an attempted coup. I guess it was attempted coup. Maybe it was an attempted to stay in power, going up against the will of the American people's votes in regards to all this. Some of the things that he is talking about here, the Secretary of Defense here, or not the Secretary of Defense, but whoever this guy is, a lot of it makes a lot of good sense. And speaking from a massive perspective towards telling everybody that they're going to be remembered and how various people sacrificed their lives and sacrificed great apparel pertaining to what went on in their lives towards being injured. A lot of those things that he's talking about here are fine and dandy. But he does not touch on the basis of the Capitol Police breached their security, because the Capitol Police is not supposed to allow for anybody to enter into an area that's being held, especially during a sacred ceremony like this. What if, let's just say what if it was North Korea? What if it was Russia? What if it was a well-organized group that had full intentions of not just coming in there and busting in and showing themselves as being belligerent against the will of the people, but what if that would have been an oncoming true enemy, such as the terrorism that attacked us during 9/11? Do you think that you and me right now, think about this for a second, do you really think that you and me right now, if they would have successfully succeeded in taking over the government positions, it would be the same type of scenario towards the Taliban overcoming the Afghanistan people within 11 days? And now, guess where those Afghanistan people are? They're sitting in those big, nice chairs. They have these big, nice rooms. They have these big, nice buildings, in addition to billions of dollars worth of equipment that we have left there at our ignorant exposure. If it would have been a true movement of a organized group, right now you and me could very well be under a subjective, different rule than what we have been subject to all our lives because of what went on January the 6th, which tomorrow will mark that anniversary date, the remembrance of January the 6th. It is so barbaric, it is so violent, it is so wrong to even think that anybody would even think about doing anything like this. But at the same time, listen to me, but at the same time, being a spectator, looking at both sides at the same time, you got to come into the realization that this country has failed the American people. The country that we have voted people in office that's supposed to not only protect us, but they're supposed to maintain jobs for us. They're supposed to maintain safety for us. They're supposed to maintain good health for us. They're supposed to have an opportunity for a better tomorrow for our children and our children's children after we get old enough to retire. They have failed. They have failed. So it's well understandable the reason why that a group of people, I don't agree with what they've done now. It's kind of like Timothy McVeigh and Nichols that done what they done to try to vindicate the people towards the wrongdoing that happened down in Waco, Texas. I don't agree with that tactic that Timothy McVeigh and Nichols used, okay? I don't agree with it. But at the same time, you have to be you have to be a realist to understand why did they feel so strongly about wanting to vindicate the people that died during the Waco siege, the 51-day siege. Just like you got to be realistical towards why has the American people risen up in a state of violence in trying to overthrow or take back over that in which what obviously has failed the American people. Like I said, whenever he gets on here and he brags about the campus or the police pertaining to the federal protection in the Capitol building, the Capitol Police, that in and of itself is a mockery, because you shouldn't be boasting or bragging about them not doing their jobs properly towards keeping the enemy at bay. That would be like telling the Taliban and all the terrorists that we know originally come from Saudi Arabia, oh, y'all done a magnificent job towards coming over here and hijacking 4 planes and causing all the destruction and death that you did. That would be the most hideous, damnedest thing that I've ever heard in my entire life. And to think that these people want to get up in front of national TV and justify not only the Capitol Police, but justify themselves in such of a failure that they have made for the past 25 to 30 years is a mockery to our ancestry of those who have sacrificed what that they have sacrificed to give us a free, fair democracy. So what these people are trying to do is really and truly an eye-opener moment a year later, because if the truth be known, it was an inside job. There was various people that already pretty well suspicion that things was going to get tough and out of hand. Those people failed to put up the right measures in their gut instincts and believing that something was going to occur, and they didn't take proper actions of preventing it from happening. Even if it meant bringing in the military, even if it meant putting up a barrier, even if it meant whatever. Especially during a sacred procedure. I have never in my life heard such, I guess you'd call it, deceiving lies in how that our government is functioning and how that they have been functioning. And whenever you hear what you're going to hear, like I said, a great deal of it is true, but a great deal of it is not true, especially whenever you get to looking at who failed who to prevent the people from getting in there. There's no doubt that once they got in there, there were certain officers that done what they done in response towards being a heroic, courageous act. There's no doubt that there was very few officers that stood in harm's way that was willing to sacrifice the ultimate sacrifice if they had to towards preventing that type of harm and hurt coming to our government officials. But only very few that done that. The rest of them allowed for that stuff to happen because they did not have proper defense in resisting that type of resistance movement. It'd be the same thing if you had a football team and you had everybody on one side that was 225 pounds or more pushing up against a bunch of high school kids that was only 125, 40 pounds. It would be the same difference. There would be no competition there. The 200-pound men are going to walk all over those 100-pound boys or men that's on the field. That's the reason why we're supposed to have proper planning. That's the reason why we're supposed to have proper defenses that raise a red flag to various things that's going on. And that's the reason why that I feel like that instead of rewarding these people, they should be reprimanded. They should go through some sort of a reprimand and basically either be fined or go to jail or make a mockery out of. And I ain't talking about necessarily the Capitol Police, and generally speaking. I'm talking about those that was in charge of the Capitol Police and those that was in charge of those that was in charge of the Capitol Police. Those are the people that have failed the American people by allowing for this to ever happen to begin with. It would be the same thing if we knew without a shadow of a doubt that another 9/11 was fixing to occur and we stood back and just let it happen to innocent men, women, and children. And we're going to commend people for that? We're going to give you a star or a medal for failing to provide safety and security to the American people pertaining to our American government? I don't think so. I don't think so. So let's listen real quick towards who this guy is. And I think whenever you get further into this, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
Attorney General Merrick Garland will update the public.
Attorney General. Okay, my mistake. It was not the Defense Department. It was the Attorney General. That's right up underneath the president. That basically speaks for the president of the United States that's currently in power, which is Mr. Biden, that is making these gestures of recommendations. He's making these gestures of commitments. He's making these gestures of commending people that I don't feel like should be commended. There's a few people that need to be commended, a few, but by and large, they still haven't gotten the true perpetrators, because he uses this word several different times, perpetrator, perpetrator, perpetrator. They still haven't gotten to the root of the cause towards why, who, and where all this occurred. We know by setting back those that keep up with the news, those that keep up with current affairs. There's a lot of people that could care less about current affairs. As long as it don't come to their home, as long as it don't affect their lives, they don't even watch the news. They don't want to watch the news. They think the news is false, fake, and they're not about to watch it in a heartbeat unless it's something that currently happens to them directly. But if you've been keeping up with the news any at all, and you've seen the things that I've seen and heard the things that I've heard and witnessed the things that has been on TV, you pretty well get a good idea towards how and who was stirring the pot towards making this fester the way that it did, that exploded in a bunch of people's faces the day of January the 6th. Once more, the Vice President of the United States at that time, before the swearing in, failed Mr. Trump in appealing to the votes in about 6 different states that, according to some people that I've heard, he had the power to reverse. But he didn't do it. Why did he not do that? He did not do that because there was too much evidence that supported the authenticity of the voting process being truthful in regards towards there was no way that the Republicans won over on the Democrats, according to the counts being counted and recounted again and again and again in several states to verify validation that the winner was who the winner was. What you have here is a sore loser. What you have here is somebody that was on some sort of a power trip. What you have here is a person that didn't care about our free, open, fair election pertaining to our democracy, and he has caused irreversible damage to our republic that will be remembered for the history of existence from now until the end of the world, pertaining to how come we allowed for somebody like this to come in and try to manipulate his way, bully his way around in taking over or remaining in power towards taking over his position as a unauthorized, duly appointed president. If there was any lies It was the lies that Donald Trump and his administration was pumping up to the American people that led a great deal of people into the abyss. It was like an entrapment deal, similar towards what happened with the ATF and the Davidians down in Waco, Texas in 1993. Purposely panhandling or preying on weak-minded people, getting them all hyped up. And then the next thing you know, those same people, they injected their feelings openly before the public in a ugly type way. And once more, me being a spectator, looking at both sides pertaining to what that I have seen this government fail in safety issues, security issues, pertaining to hackers, pertaining to people stealing people's accounts, pertaining to all the drug violence, pertaining to all the dope violence, pertaining to all the suicides, pertaining to all the other crime that's going on in America, pertaining to not even having enough strength or enough sense, one or the other, I don't know which it is, towards being able to stop illegals from coming into America, regardless whether they be Mexicans, Cubans, Russians, or Canadians, or whoever, that we have failed in our system towards bringing safety and security to the American people. Please listen. Please listen. It is so pathetic in some of the things that he's saying. Some of the things he's saying I agree with, but a lot of the things he's saying, it irks me, man. You hear me? It irks me to watch people get on national TV and tell lies and expect people to believe those lies.
Into the insurrection in a moment. He is expected to reaffirm the DOJ's commitment to holding all January 6 perpetrators accountable and say that his department will, quote, follow the facts wherever they lead. We just got a 2-minute warning, so let's quickly go to our justice correspondent, Pete Williams, along with University of Alabama law professor and former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance, who's also an MSNBC legal analyst. Pete, what should we expect from the Attorney General?
Yeah, I think two things to listen for is, one, we know he's going to say the following: the Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6th perpetrators at any level accountable under law, whether they were present
Pete, I'm so
that
sorry.
day.
That 2-minute warning was more like a 20-second warning. So let's go into the Attorney General.
For two reasons. First and foremost, to thank you. Thank you for the work you have done, not just over the last 10 months, but over the past several years. Work that you have done in the face of unprecedented challenges, ranging from an unprecedented, deadly pandemic to an unprecedented attack on our democracy. Thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, and for your dedication. I am honored to serve alongside you. And second, as we begin a new year, and as we prepare to mark a solemn anniversary tomorrow, it is a fitting time to reaffirm that we at the Department of Justice will do everything in our power to defend the American people and American democracy. We will defend our democratic institutions from attack. We will protect those who serve the public from violence and threats of violence. We will protect the cornerstone of our democracy, the right to every eligible citizen to cast a vote that counts. And we will do all of this in a manner that adheres to the rule of law and honors our obligation to protect the civil rights and civil liberties of everyone in this country. Tomorrow will mark the first anniversary of January 6, 2021, the day the United States Capitol was attacked while lawmakers met to affirm the results of a presidential election. In the early afternoon of January 6th, as the United States Senate and House of Representatives were meeting to certify the vote count of the Electoral College, a large crowd gathered outside the Capitol building. Shortly after 2 p.m., individuals in the crowd began to force entry into the Capitol by smashing windows and assaulting U.S. Capitol Police, who were stationed there to protect the members of Congress as they took part in one of the most solemn proceedings of our democracy. Others in the crowd encouraged and assisted those who attacked the police. Over the course of several hours, outnumbered law enforcement officers sustained a barrage of repeated violent attacks. About 80 Capitol Police and 60 DC Metropolitan Police were assaulted. As our own court filings and thousands of public videos of the event attest, perpetrators punched dozens of law enforcement officers, knocking some officers unconscious. Some perpetrators tackled and dragged law enforcement officers. Among the many examples of such violence, one officer was crushed in a door, another was dragged down a set of stairs, face down, repeatedly tased and beaten, and suffered a heart attack. Some perpetrators attacked law enforcement officers with chemical agents that burn their eyes and skin, and some assaulted officers with pipes, poles, and other dangerous or deadly weapons. Perpetrators also targeted, assaulted, tackled, and harassed journalists and destroyed their equipment. With increasing numbers of individuals having breached the Capitol, members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, including the President of the Senate, Vice President Mike Pence, had to be evacuated. As a consequence, proceedings in both chambers were disrupted for hours, interfering with a fundamental element of American democracy, the peaceful transfer of power from one administration to the next. Those involved must be held accountable, and there is no higher priority for us at the Department of Justice. It is impossible to overstate the heroism of the Capitol Police officers, Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department officers, and other law enforcement officers who defended and secured the Capitol that day. They demonstrated to all of us and to our country what true courage looks like. Their resolve, their sacrifice, and their bravery protected thousands of people working inside the Capitol that day. 5 officers who responded selflessly to the attack on January 6th have since lost their lives. I ask everyone to please join me in a moment of silence in recognition of the service and sacrifice of Officer Brian Sicknick, Officer Howard Liebengood, Officer Jeffrey Smith, Officer Gunther Hashida, and Officer Kyle DeFreitag. I know I speak for all of us in saying that tomorrow, and in our work in the days ahead, we will not only remember them, we will do everything we can to honor them. In the aftermath of the attack, the Justice Department began its work on what has become one of the largest, most complex, and most resource-intensive investigations in our history. Only a small number of perpetrators were arrested in the tumult of January 6th itself. Every day since, we have worked to identify, investigate, and apprehend defendants from across the country. And we have done so at record speed and scale in the midst of a pandemic during which some grand juries and courtrooms were not able to operate. Led by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia and the FBI's Washington Field Office, DOJ personnel across the department in nearly all 56 field offices, in nearly all 94 United States Attorney's offices, and in many main justice components have worked countless hours to investigate the attack. Approximately 70 prosecutors from the District of Columbia and another 70 from other U.S. Attorney's offices and DOJ divisions have participated in this investigation. So far, we have issued over 5,000 subpoenas and search warrants, seized approximately 2,000 devices, poured through over 20,000 hours of video footage, and searched through an estimated 15 terabytes of data. We have received over 300,000 tips from ordinary citizens who have been our indispensable partners in this effort. The FBI's website continues to post photos of persons in connection with the events of January 6th and we continue to seek the public's assistance in identifying those individuals. As of today, we have arrested and charged more than 725 defendants in nearly all 50 states and the District of Columbia for their roles in the January 6th attack. In charging the perpetrators, we have followed well-worn prosecutorial practices. Those who assaulted officers or damaged the Capitol face greater charges. Those who conspired with others to obstruct the vote count also face greater charges. Those who did not undertake such conduct have been charged with lesser offenses, particularly if they accepted their responsibility early and cooperated with the investigation. In the first months of the investigation, approximately 145 defendants pled guilty to misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors. I want to stop right there for a second. Misdemeanors. Okay? I'm going to say this with an open conscience of something that I believe. Of course, speaking from a hypothetical standpoint, there's really no way that you can prove it. But I'm going to be willing to say that if that was Mr. Obama and his administration that showed themselves to be this ugly in the process of an election, it wouldn't have been misdemeanors. It wouldn't have been the judicial system looking for the perpetrators towards being able to fine them or pat them on the back of the hand. You would have probably had an all out and out assault war up onto Obama and the Obama's administration and those that was planning some sort of event like this. And I say that not so much because of the prejudice that America still holds of the black versus the white versus the black, but I say that in fairness because the statistics prove that to this day, the black man does not get treated fairly like the white man. Just like the statistics prove, listen to me, just like the statistics prove that a woman doing the same job as a man ordinarily does not get the same benefits or the same pay as the man that's doing the job. Now, whenever it comes to realization and looking at things from a real perspective, in reality, if this would have been handled by a different administration, and I'm just going to use Obama for an example, it could have backfired on the Clinton administration. It could have very well backfired on the Bush administration. But I almost could guarantee you that if Mr. Obama would have acted this way towards an election, it wouldn't have been misdemeanors. It would not have been misdemeanors. And it could have very well led into an all-out and out assault that could have led into an American Civil War. That's how close that we was towards seeing our republic destroyed in the name of greed, selfishness, and stupidity that certain people in the White House created and allowed for this to happen. They have got testimony from Donald Trump's own daughter, his own son, that they was begging Donald Trump to calm the crowd down. For give or take about 2.5 hours, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even a little bit longer than that, while he sat and got entertained by watching all the destruction occur. Okay? I just want to use this for an example real quick, and then I'm going to let this individual speak right here. And I appreciate him going to prayer pertaining to the individuals that have paid the ultimate sacrifice on account of this. But we want to degrade an individual that was down in Texas towards a rapper that all of a sudden things got out of hand in his music lyrics, and all of a sudden there was a stampede, and all of a sudden there was several people that got injured and killed during that event. Okay? All of a sudden, everybody went to that concert pertaining to the leader of that concert. I don't forget the name, and I ain't going to mention his name even if I knew the name. But all of a sudden, the people wanted to hold him accountable. Because with him being on the stage, even though he's looking at a wave or a mass of people, basically you can see their heads, but you can't see the rest of their bodies because they was basically shoulder to shoulder. It was that many people in there. That was probably violating all safety and fire regulations. But that's on a completely different issue towards the safety people in that area that should have been held accountable and responsible. But everybody wanted to hold that rapper accountable for the things that went on that night that caused life, limb, and injury. How come the American people aren't holding Donald Trump accountable for life, limb, and injury? That was basically, if you compare the two scenarios, was very, very close of being the same. The only difference was the music lyrics versus the politician lyrics. But you still had control over a mass or a variety of lots of people. How come we want to hold the black rapper accountable, but we don't want to hold a white president accountable? That's the things that I look at. That's the comparisons that I see. Okay, and I'm just one person with one opinion. You can validate my opinion and say that you agree with my opinion, or you can oppose my opinion. It don't matter to me, but I got a right to voice my opinion because I am an American citizen, and I do got people that fought not only in World War II but World War I and the Civil War, and I guess the Revolutionary War. That was associated with my DNA that has helped to put me where I am right here today towards being an American citizen. So I do think that I got a right to speak out. Now, some people would tell you, well, if you didn't vote, you don't have a right to complain. Well, that ain't nothing but an outlandish lie of the devil. The reason why that I didn't want to throw my hat in the arena pertaining to the voting deal is because I know how corrupt that both sides have become. How dishonest that both sides have become. And once I pretty well throw my hands in the air and say, you know what? Both of them is two peas in a pod, and if you shake them up and drop them out of a bag or a barrel, they're going to come out both basically the same thing. Our system has failed. And until we're willing to recognize that and quit being biased towards certain people that gets a break and certain people that don't, kind of like the rapper down there in Texas, okay? And that's just one illustration. I can come up with thousands of other illustrations similar, including on my own, of how that they have attacked the founder of the Windmill Ministries by putting all these different ideals in all these people's heads about me that I'm basically either some sort of a lunatic or a monster. And I don't think I feel like that I'm neither of the above. Does that mean I'm perfect? No. Can you walk on water, Mr. Jackson? No. Have you ever turned water into wine, Mr. Jackson? No. Have you ever raised the dead, Mr. Jackson? No. But I can say this. By me being close to death, God raised me from the dead. I do know this, that God gave his son, Jesus Christ, enough power that Jesus Christ turned water into wine, that Jesus Christ walked on water, and the same Spirit and the same living God that lived within his son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit during that movement of the discipleship of all the apostles, the same Spirit today lives today as it did back then. The same Spirit that directed Meshach and Abednego and the other brother towards the fire and furnace, that same Spirit that protected them then is living today towards protecting God's true people today. But we have to be willing to speak out. We have to be willing to tell our side of the story and to say, look here, this is what I see. This is how I see it. And you got the opportunity that you can either agree with it or not. But these are the things that I have put together in my little finite mind in understanding the unfairness of the broken American system. Now, naturally, if you feel like that you've got the world by the tiger tail and everything is going hunky-dory in your life and you got a big, thick bank account and you don't have no problems right now, you probably think, well, I ain't going to buck the system. I ain't going to buck the system. We can understand that. You're probably part of what? Give or take the 3 or 4%. Of course, you got the 1%ers that's in control of not only the 3%ers, but you also got the 1%ers that's in control of the other 94%ers or 95%ers or 96%ers, okay? Those 94, 95%ers, they're not doing like the other 3%ers. And they for darn sure ain't doing like the 1%ers. A matter of fact, that 90-something percenters of people are suffering on account of all this. They feel like that their government has failed them on account of all this. And obviously, we can't even get the district attorney to stand up there and tell us with a straight face the honesty of towards what actually occurred January the 6th. We cannot get a government official to be a straight shooter in calling what needs to be called in the right perspective that it needs to be called in. Now, I don't know if they just don't understand it. I don't know if they think that it's too complex and isn't nobody going to understand the things like I'm talking about and breaking it down and looking at it the way that I'm looking at it. I don't know. They may just be people that are ineligible to be able to talk the way that I'm talking. They may be people that's just not qualified. They're incapable of understanding the things like people like myself can see and understand and talk about. I pray for our nation. I pray for the people that got victimized that day. I pray for the situation that various government officials has allowed for this country to basically dig off into, just like making a mockery out of itself towards walking away from a 20-year war, spending trillions of dollars on, and then 11 days later, the very enemy takes it back over again. These are not bragging points. These are not bragging points. It would be like if you was bragging about a football team that lost. You don't do that in the realization of society. That's the reason why some people dislike me. And that's the reason why some people do like me, is because I'm not willing to bow, or bend over a bunch of corrupted democracy bureaucrats that want to feed us a bunch of junk in making us believe something that they're feeding to the American people. Once more, I don't know if they just don't qualify. I don't know if they're incapable of breaking it down the way that I break it down and let you look at various things that's going on, or if they just don't care. I don't know which it is. Maybe the devil has got them so blinded they really can't explain themselves properly to the American people by telling them this is what happened, this is what we're going to do, and this is the reason for doing it. Okay? And whenever it comes to fairness, I feel like that Donald Trump and his administration and the people up underneath him should be held just as much accountable for their actions on January the 6th as the people do pertaining to the rapper down in Texas somewhere. Now, that's my personal feelings, and I feel like that I've got a right to my personal feelings, and you can either agree with that or you can disagree with that. Okay? But what is fair for the goose is supposed to be fair for the gander, and you just as well take that saying and throw it out the door, because if you're a wealthy person, not just somebody like Donald Trump, but if you're a wealthy person, even in local counties, by and large, officials will not touch you, even though they know that you're guilty of the crime, because the power grid that separates the state from reality, the prosecutors won't go after these people. But yet, no, they'll go after somebody like me because I speak out and I tell the way that I tell what I'm telling in a straight shooter type way. And basically the bottom line is this: if I so much as even step on a wooden nickel, they're going to come down here and arrest me. even though it was David and I, my brother and I, that's now dead, that was concerned about the well-being of 3 little children across the road. I have never seen a society in America that was flipped, that was so engaged in calling right, wrong, and wrong, right. I have never seen it this way. And I'm going to let you know something. It's scary. It's not only scary from a political perspective, but it's scary from a spiritual perspective, because whenever things gets out of hand to the degree that they are right here in America, that's whenever God stands up in his own throne room and gets to paying very, very close attention towards just exactly who the true perpetrators are, who should be commended, who should be reprimanded. And whenever it reaches the point that even the good people can't decipher the difference between right and wrong, that's whenever God makes his decision towards what's right and wrong. And that's whenever God throws the towel in and says, this is a society that has reached the pivotal point of being doomed. He done the exact same thing to the era of Noah. Once that era becomes so wicked, so demonic, so perverted, so mentally distraught, it's kind of like genocide. That's the reason why wars back in the Bible days, if you know anything about the Bible, know anything about various histories, that's the reason why they went in and they killed women, men, children, dogs, cattle. They burn it all down to the ground. Is because they did not want that seed to fester towards somebody else coming back at them some other time later with the same ideology towards, hey, we're going to overthrow you. Hey, we're going to do damage to you. Hey, we're going to kill you. Hey, we're going to take over the show. Whenever it gets to the point that the perverted and the ungodly are now calling the shots in a godly nation, that's whenever you have to start wondering, why in the hell is all this hardship falling upon the society, regardless whether it's coming in the form of COVID, or it's coming in the form of floods, or it's coming in the form of fires, or it's coming in the form of tornadoes or hurricanes or other events that obviously keep bombarding the American people again and again and again. And obviously you got a group of people that are memorized, blinded to the degree that they don't understand why God is allowing for these things to occur. It's really sad. In the year 2022 that we're fixing to walk off into, whenever we have to sit and listen to somebody like this guy that's not being a straight shooter, that's commending people that shouldn't be commended, and he's not reprimanding people that should be reprimanded. It just is sickening. It's irking to think that the American people have sat back and allowed for stuff like this to go on, and it's just so sad. I could almost get down on the floor right now and cry like a baby, throw a fit if I thought it would do any good. But I know it's not going to do any good. My tears would basically be in vain at this point in time. And the only thing that I can do is what I've been doing, is by telling people my story, telling people the way that I view things, and telling people, warning people that this is why God is allowing for this to happen, is because this is happening. Okay? All I can do, I'm a one-man show. I'm a one-man horse and pony show. And I really don't have the authority or the influences like some of these ministers internationally, world ministers got. I'm just going to use Joe Osteen. I'm going to throw his name out there. That these people have a lot of influence with a lot of people. And if these people was to get on national TV and talk the way that I'm talking, towards explaining to the American people what needs to be explained to the American people towards what is going on and why it's going on, and who actually needs to be reprimanded and who don't need to be reprimanded, if they was to get and do their jobs, I truly believe that we as a society here in America would not be having to experience all the sorrow, the agony, and the hardship that has befallen up into a great deal of people's lives just within the past 3 years. Not counting what's went on in the past 30 years, but just within the past 3 years. Okay? And believe it or not, according to the statistics that has validated themselves, not only are the storms getting more frequent, but they're getting more powerful, or just like the tornado that broke all records towards getting on the ground and almost staying on the ground for 250 miles, killing almost 100 people. Give or take around 76, 77 people as of right now that has been destroyed on account of these massive storms that have intensified in strength. And whenever I say intensified in strength, I'm talking about them getting on the ground and plowing through stuff that would have been absolutely unheard of probably 25 or 30 years ago. I mean, yeah, we had storms 25 to 30 years ago, but I don't think none of them reached that intensity. As a matter of fact, the weather service has already said that particular one tornado, December the 10th, broke all-time records. Doppler says it broke all-time records. I'm sure NASA keeps up with their files pretty good. I'm sure the Army keeps up with their files pretty good. If they have confessed that it has broken all-time records, don't you think it's time for us to start believing that it's broken all-time records? If they have confessed that this thing called global warming is really, really real, how many times do we have to repeat ourselves towards we're going to have to do something? We're going to have to make transitionable changes in our lives if we're going to be a self-sustainable nation or a safe, sustainable planet without all these eruptions and all this horrible, horrible bad stuff that continues to keep happening, not only to the American people, but to the people all over the world.
Who did not cause injury or damage. Such pleas reflect the facts of those cases and the defendant's acceptance of responsibility, and they help conserve both judicial and prosecutorial resources so that attention can properly focus on the more serious perpetrators. In complex cases, initial charges are often less severe than later charged offenses. This is purposeful, as investigators methodically collect and sift through more evidence. By now, though, we have charged over 325 defendants with felonies, many for assaulting officers, and many for corruptly obstructing or attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. 20 defendants charged with felonies have already pled guilty. Approximately 40 defendants have been charged with conspiracy to obstruct a congressional proceeding and or to obstruct law enforcement. In the months ahead, 17 defendants are already scheduled to go to trial for their role in felony conspiracies. A necessary consequence of the prosecutorial approach of charging less serious offenses first is that courts impose shorter sentences before they impose longer ones. In recent weeks, however, as judges have sentenced the first defendants convicted of assaults and related violent conduct against officers, we have seen significant sentences that reflect the seriousness of those offenses, both in terms of the injuries they caused and the serious risk they pose to our democratic institutions. The actions we have taken thus far will not be our last. The Justice Department remains committed to holding all January 6 perpetrators at any level accountable under law.
Prove it.
Whether they were present that day.
Prove it.
Or were otherwise criminally responsible for the assault on our democracy.
Prove it.
We will follow the facts wherever they lead.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Because January 6th was an unprecedented attack on the seat of our democracy, We understand that there is broad public interest in our investigation. We understand that there are questions about how long the investigation will take and about what exactly we are doing. Our answer is, and will continue to be, the same answer we would give with respect to any ongoing investigation. As long as it takes, and whatever it takes, for justice to be done, consistent with the facts and the law. I understand that this may not be the answer some are looking for, but we will and we must speak through our work. Anything else jeopardizes the viability of our investigations and the civil liberties of our citizens. Everyone in this room and on these screens is familiar with the way we conduct investigations.
See, that's the part right there that I don't understand. I was always taught, with the poor man's perspective, the working man's perspective, that if you want to be a lawbreaker, a criminal, you don't have no rights. You don't deserve to have no rights. Your rights have been jeopardized because all of a sudden you decided to be a lawbreaker. What did that man just say? What did he just say about the lawbreakers? Let's back it up and listen to it.
Investigations, and particularly complex investigation.
Let's back it up. Back it up. Back it up. Right there. Listen to it.
Broad public interest in our investigation. We understand that there are questions about how long the investigation will take and about what exactly we are doing. Our answer is, and will continue to be, the same answer we would give with respect to any ongoing investigation. As long as it takes, and whatever it takes, for justice to be done, consistent with the facts and the law. I understand that this may not be the answer some are looking for, but we will and we must speak through our work. Anything else jeopardizes the viability of our investigations and the civil liberties of our citizens.
And the civil liberties of our citizens. So the lawbreakers are still considered you know what? If a person can't see through that in understanding how corrupted our law has become towards cherry picking who it's going to punish, who it's not going to punish. Two people with the exact same crime, same motives. One over here gets punished this way, and one over here gets punished this way. And you're telling me that that's equal? You're telling me that that's fair? Whenever they catch a sheriff over in Gibson County, that if it would have been anybody else, that had probably got 25 years for all the charges that they had him on. They basically got a 10-year probation and a $10,000 fine. Whenever they catch a preacher that tried to kill his own wife, that went to Cancun, Mexico, of the Second Baptist Church in Union City, and then the law backs off from pursuing towards punishing that individual because his wife obviously is dingy to the point that she said that she didn't want to press charges. Whenever we have people in a local positions that we know for a fact have done certain criminal crimes and they did not stand in justice of the law, then you no longer have a true law. You have a make-believe law. You have a phony law. You have a fake law. You have something that gives the impression of being fair and just, but in reality, based upon who you are, how deep your pockets are, what type of position that you hold in society, that will determine rather than that you get a harsh punishment or a mild punishment, even though you can compare the two people together that has done the exact same crime, and one person gets the 5th degree or basically gets buried alive, gets the book thrown at him, while the other person gets to walk. Is this what they call fairness in America? Is this what they call justice? That's what's happened to our country. Our country has been hijacked by high-talking, silver-tongued, $50 word-speaking people that have bamboozled the 95, 96, 97%, while the rest of them still sits up there and beats their chest and tells everybody what kind of good job that they doing and pats one another on the back and hands out kind of like the people down there in ATF that caused about 60-something lives to die, including children, women and children, and they get commended towards being given higher positions so they can make more money? And you're telling me that that's justice? Even though those people entrapped those people, even though those law enforcement agencies down there was preying on the weakness of a group of people that was basically nothing more or less than a bunch of preppers getting ready for the sky to fall? Our government, since then, just recently, within the past 3 or 4 years, has made open statements from Homeland Security that you need to have this, and this. You need to have a little bit of cash on hand. And you need to be able to take care of yourself because we're afraid that total chaos is going to hit. And whenever it does, we're not going to be able to protect you or take care of you. So they're asking now society to become preppers in regards towards the sky falling. But yet now at the time, they was going to panhandle. They was going to entrap. They was going to basically try to make an example out of the people in Waco. And since then, if you get to noticing all the different weather phenomenons that has occurred in the United States, all the gun shootings, all the criminal activity, all the politic corruption, all the other stuff that I haven't even mentioned, okay, that a lot of people know about. If you'll get to looking at the pattern since basically Ronald Reagan left office and the Bushes become in power, you will see a snowballing, patterning facts towards how things has escalated since that time and gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, including the very things that he's talking about today that happened no less than a year ago. So we buy into these lies. We listen to these silver talkers. They talk about these 50 words that the majority of us don't even know what it entails, unless you went to college or you've done a lot of studying by yourself and you've looked up various words towards understanding what the meaning of these words mean. It's kind of like in federal court. They basically have their own language in federal court. You can have federal court, and if you don't know anything about federal court, they can get up there and say stuff that you don't a bit more understand than a man on the moon. I don't know if they're speaking in Latin. I don't know if they're speaking in Greek. I don't know if they're speaking in some other kind of language. But unless you've studied their language that they speak, and you can identify the methods in regards towards the procedures in federal court, if it's a true blue, blown out federal court, the majority of the laymen in America will be lost as a goose in the middle of a hailstorm towards not understanding what they're saying and the meaning in behind what they're saying. You're talking about a government that on any given year changes about 1,000 different policies pertaining to its Internal Revenue Service policies. That way, from one year to the next, you basically got to be an Einstein to keep up with all the changes that they make from one year to another. Because this year, they're liable to say this is acceptable, and the following next year, they're liable to say, well, it's not acceptable, and then go back to the following next year and tell you that they are acceptable. They're constantly struggling towards making things that much more complex, which is the author of confusion that the Bible talks about as far as Satanism. And of course, we're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. I don't forget now how much trillions of dollars in debt we are. We've got problems on every front. And we got to sit here and listen to a silver tongue talker? A silver tongue talker? That's exactly what has invaded or held us ransom of what's going on. So in exchange to that, by me saying all that, I say this. I can see the reason why there was a movement, January the 6th, in people being disgusted pertaining to various government officials that is still to this day bamboozling the American people. The same people that was in charge and in power of various situations then up there are still in power today. The same people that should be held accountable and responsible for the problems that is initiated in the past few years pertaining to the failure of these government positions, regardless whether it's a sheriff or a congressman or a statesman or anybody else, all the above, from local government to state government to federal government. As far as I know, there's only been a very, very few of them that has been asked or voted out of office. By and large, those people are still in power. So we still have the same thinkers. We still have the same motives. We still have the same power pertaining to the old money that's still dictating and dominating our lives. When is America going to say enough is enough? And to be quite frank with you, from what I can tell, towards nobody wanting to support the Windmill Ministries, towards me not having no supporters here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, from what I can tell, it's probably going to take something bigger than a massive 1,000 house fire. It's probably going to take something greater than 2 or 3 states burning at the same time, or maybe 4 or 5. I think sometimes we have as many as 25 fires out of control in the dead summertime. From what I can tell, it's probably going to take something greater than a COVID pandemic. From what I can tell, it's probably going to take something greater than a F4 or 5 tornado or Hurricane Katrina to be able to change the minds and the hearts of certain people in the United States that obviously either don't recognize the problems or are too scared to speak out about the problems. One or the other. One or the other. Maybe they've been bamboozled to the degree that's kind of like a preacher. Well, if you continue to keep hurting our feelings towards stepping on our toes, well, we're going to vote you out of here and you'll be looking for another job, preacher man. And then you can go on down the road and not have no money to support your wife and your children and your education and your secondary homes and your insurances and all the other above. We're being held hostage in doing the right thing or talking about the right thing. And of course, whenever you speak out like I spoke out about the Oklahoma bombing, pertaining to it being led to the Waco incident that happened in 1993, pertaining to the Davidians, you see what happened to my life. You see what happened to my life. And maybe that's the very reason why that so many people don't speak out and don't stand up to be accounted for, is because they're afraid the same thing is going to happen to them that has happened to various people like me. And I'm sure, I know for a fact that I'm not the only one. Matter of fact, I could probably count, give or take, about 100 that I know of personally that have went through various issues with the United States government that really and truly was not just. Keep in mind, I was caught up in their system of either being in county, state, or federal jails, give or take. They have stolen, they have blackmailed, give or take, about 2.5 years out of my life, beginning in Nashville, Tennessee, with Homeland Security, from Tennessee to Kentucky to Oklahoma. Those 3 states have stolen, blackmailed, give or take, about 2.5 years out of my life because of the way I feel and because of my religious experiences and because they do not want me to become effective in the eyes of society. They want to keep their cash cow. They want to keep the lies going. They want to keep people from successfully succeeding. They want to keep people down. Maybe it is too late. Maybe it is going to take something worse. I just know this. The innocent blood will not be upon my feet pertaining to various people that has let this thing get out of hand the way that it has, because I've tried to help them. I've tried to help them again and again and again. I've tried to put out advisories pertaining to electrical disturbances, major weather events. I've tried to put out advisories pertaining to a bloody road ahead. And since 2005, whenever I put that out, you can look at the charts towards all the gruesome killings pertaining to the massacres, school shootings, college shootings, kicking out windows in Las Vegas, going in nightclubs and churches, and basically desecrating people's lives again and again and again. Apparently, this is what the American people must want. What other opinion can I possibly have whenever I still do not see a movement, a real movement in resisting against these things? And I'm not talking about a insurrection that happened January the 6th. Yeah, that was a form or a type of let's try to get things in a better shape, but they done it in the wrong way. Once more, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with you having to go in and create such chaos and basically become just as corrupt as they are because of their corruption. This is the reason why we're supposed to have an open, fair democracy. This is the reason why we're supposed to be able to talk and discuss things and look at various angles without having to worry about going to jail because of the way I feel or because of me voicing my opinion. Kind of like the girl that was in the Olympics over in China, and she said something about something. I don't forget now what it was, but she suddenly disappeared. And she's only being seen and heard in various shadows. And who's to say who's telling her what to say? And if you instill fear up into somebody like that, towards trying to hijack them, towards trying to blackmail them, well, they'll say just about anything that they have to say, or they feel like that they have to say, just in order to maintain any type of source of liberty. Kind of like myself, that went ahead and owned up to the crime up in Kentucky that I know that I was not guilty of. The crime here in Tennessee recently, while my brother David was still living, pertaining to the concern of 3 little innocent children. Whenever it reaches the point that you're actually blackmailing people, you're telling people that if you don't take the COVID shot, this is what's going to happen to you. You're going to lose your job. You're no longer going to get paid. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Whenever you're going around blackmailing people that is supposed to be one of our laws in not being able to do. When you're going around cherry picking towards who gets punished and who don't get punished, according to basically the same type of disruptions, people that's out here basically creating these riot type atmospheres, you're going to have things that's going to fall out of the sky that are going to basically whip not only the guilty, but also it's going to put a movement up onto the innocent. Now, if you want these things to stop, then you need to start listening to somebody like me, and you need to start changing your ways and go back and do your works over again, like the first 3 chapters of Revelation talks about, because God has not yet found our works perfect. If you want these things to stop,
everyone in this room and on these screens is familiar with the way we conduct investigations, and particularly complex investigations. We build investigations by laying a foundation. We resolve more straightforward cases first because they provide the evidentiary foundation for more complex cases. Investigating the more overt crimes generates linkages to less overt ones. Overt actors and the evidence they provide can lead us to others who may also have been involved. And that evidence can serve as a foundation for further investigative leads and techniques. In circumstances like those of January 6, a full accounting does not suddenly materialize. To ensure that all those criminally responsible are held accountable, we must collect the evidence. We follow the physical evidence.
how much evidence do you need? He just got through telling everybody that they have confiscated how many terabytes? Two terabytes. Do you have any idea how many gigabytes, much less megabytes, it takes to make a terabyte? They have confiscated 2 terabytes of data pertaining to filming. How much more evidence does the judicial system in America need?
We follow the digital evidence. We follow the money. But most important, we follow the facts. Not an agenda or an assumption. The facts tell us where to go next. Over 40 years ago, in the wake of the Watergate scandal, the Justice Department concluded that the best way to ensure the department's independence, integrity, and fair application of our laws, and therefore the best way to ensure the health of our democracy, is to have a set of norms to govern our work. The central norm is that in our criminal investigations, there cannot be different rules depending on one's political party or affiliation. There cannot be different rules for friends and foes. And there can.
But yet now we know that it is based upon the person, based upon the money of the person. Come on now, let's look at the whole truth. He's telling a lie right there whenever he's saying what he's saying. Let's back it up once more.
And there cannot.
Let's back it up. Let's back it up. You don't have to take my word. Listen to it.
Not be different rules depending on one's political party or affiliation. There cannot be different rules for friends and foes.
See?
And there cannot be different rules for the powerful and the powerless.
But yet now we see it every day. We see this every day on a county, state, and federal level here in America. And you wonder how come all these horrendous, harsh things continue to keep happening to us? There you go. There you go. Whenever you got the dog returning back to its vomit. Once more, the rotting of a fish begins at the head, pertaining to the corruption that begins up on top. Not on the bottom, but up on top. Those people, January 6th, I believe, was convinced that they was going to make a difference. I believe that they was bamboozled. I believe that they was influenced by the wrong influences. I believe that they was entrapped. And I believe until America acknowledges that on a broad, truthful level towards holding various people accountable for what has occurred, we're going to continue to see more fires. We're going to continue to see more tornadoes. We're going to continue to see more drug addiction. We're going to continue to see more gun violence. We're going to continue to see problems escalate and becoming not only more powerful intensity, but they're coming together even closer, just like the Bible talks about, for it will be as a woman traveling with a child. The pains don't get lesser with a woman fixing to have a child. They get closer together and they get more severe. They get closer together and they get more severe. Until when? Until when? Until the child is born. What is that child that you're talking about, Juby? Are you talking about the wrath of God coming down upon this planet, seeking revenge upon them who obey not God and who does not serve him legitimately and authentically? Are you telling me that we are at the portals of something fixing to occur here in the good old USA and the whole planet called Earth? Yes. That's what I continue to keep telling people. Just like I've told them about electrical disturbances. Just like I've told them about a bloody road ahead. Yes, we are at the pinnacle point in America. That if we do not change our ways, if we do not acknowledge towards calling right, right, and wrong, wrong, if we do not put the proper perspectives in the right proper format, we are substance of seeing one of the most horrendous episodes take place, not only to the American land, but up onto this planet towards God himself. And you'll know the difference between the works of the devil towards killing 77 people in Kentucky and harming people down in Tennessee, or the flooding of the fires that recently happened. I promise you will know the difference. Whenever the elements in heaven become fermented, and the moon becomes as blood, and the sun becomes darkened as sackcloth, regardless whether you're in the climate at the time that it occurs, towards either being in the winter or the summer or the hot summer or the dead winter, regardless of what continent you may be on, I promise you will know the difference towards what's at the brink of happening. The Bible is clear about this, that once God gets enough of it, he will put his foot down. And he will put his foot down not because he hates the Homo sapiens upon to the planet, but he will put his foot down because he realizes this is going to be the only method or the only technique that he can use. Basically the same type of technique that he used in the era of Noah, whenever he basically looked at society and said, I regret, these are the words in the Bible now. These ain't my words. You can look it up. During the great flood of Noah, I regret that I made humanity, was his words, because it brought that much distraught. It brought that much sadness. It brought that much contentment of sorrowfulness in God's eyes, because he had to do what he done. Up until then, there wasn't no clouds. Up until then, there wasn't no such thing as rain. Vegetation got fed only by dews. That's right. Everything changed whenever God created water. Water in the sense towards water as we know it, towards lakes and rivers and etc., etc. I'm sure that there was some sort of means towards people drinking out of underground streams or whatever. I mean, I'm sure, but not on the level that it is today. Not on the level that it is today. I'm sure they had to have some sort of surviving methods back then of surviving. You know, we know for a fact that the body is made out of certain elements, and water is one of them. I'm pretty sure that their bodies was the same bodies as we have today in regards towards their needs and how they live, how they survive. But I'm just telling you what the scripture says pertaining to there was not masses amounts of water. And according to the scriptures, there was not but 8 humanly bodies that was saved during that episode. And we know for a fact that that scientists found seashells in the upper parts of various mountains, including the Rockies and etc. So we do know at one time that this planet was completely submerged underwater. And I know a lot of people that hear that, it's tough to accept. It's tough to swallow. It's beyond our wildest imaginations that anything like that can occur. Okay? The sad thing about it is you don't understand that the Creator is the one that created all of this to begin with, including you and me, in a sense. Okay? And you don't understand that if He has created all of this, what's going to limit Him towards Him creating anything else that He desires? Regardless whether it be clouds, rain, lakes. Okay? We're the ones that limits God because of our faith that we cannot believe. Well, we've got scientific proof of what has happened in the past. We got scientific proof pertaining to global warming. We got scientific proof of the Neanderthal man and dinosaurs. But yet now we still have people that are climate deniers. Wow. Where do we go from here?
There is only one rule. We follow the facts and enforce the law in a way that respects the Constitution and protects civil liberties. We conduct every investigation guided by the same norms, and we adhere to those norms even when, and especially when, the circumstances we face are not normal.
Sounds good in theory.
Adhering to the department's long-standing norms is essential to our work in defending our democracy, particularly at a time when we are confronting a rise in violence and unlawful threats of violence in our shared public spaces and directed at those who serve the public.
There you go.
We have all seen that Americans who serve and interact with the public at every level, many of whom make our democracy work every day, have been unlawfully targeted with threats of violence and actual violence. Across the country, election officials and election workers, airline flight crews, school personnel, journalists, local elected officials, U.S. senators and representatives, and judges, prosecutors, and police officers have been threatened and or attacked. These are our fellow citizens who administer our elections, ensure our safe travel, teach our children, report the news, represent their constituents, and keep our communities safe. Some have been told that their offices would be bombed. Some have been told that they would be murdered, and precisely how, that they would be hanged, that they would be beheaded. Police officers who put their lives on the line every day to serve our communities have been targeted with extraordinary levels of violence. Flight crews have been assaulted, journalists have been targeted, school personnel and their families have been threatened. A member of Congress was threatened in a gruesome voicemail that asked if she had ever seen what a .50 caliber shell does to a human head. another member of Congress, an Iraq War veteran and Purple Heart recipient, received threats that left her terrified for her family. And in 2020, a federal judge in New Jersey was targeted by someone who had appeared before her in court. That person compiled information about where the judge and her family lived and went to church. That person found the judge's home, shot and killed her son, and injured her husband. These acts and threats of violence are not associated with any one set of partisan or ideological views, but they are permeating so many parts of our national life that they risk becoming normalized and routine if we do not stop them. That is dangerous for people's safety, and it is deeply dangerous for our democracy. In a democracy, people vote, argue, and debate, often vociferously, in order to achieve the policy outcomes they desire. But in a democracy, people must not employ violence or unlawful threats of violence to affect that outcome. Citizens must not be intimidated from exercising their constitutional rights to free expression and association by such unlawful conduct. The Justice Department will continue to investigate violence and illegal threats of violence, disrupt that violence before it occurs, and hold perpetrators accountable. We have marshaled the resources of the department to address the rising violence and criminal threats of violence against election workers, against flight crews, against school personnel, against journalists, against members of Congress, and against federal agents, prosecutors, and judges. In 2021, the department charged more defendants in criminal threat cases than in any year in at least the last 5. As we do this work, we are guided by our commitment to protect civil liberties.
You see what I've been saying all along? Instead of us moving in a direction towards peace and utopia, the devil is shaking his fist in the face of God, saying, we dare you. We dare you to fulfill your commitments and your promises that you've made in regards towards bringing great wrath upon the Homo sapiens, upon this planet. Well, I got news for the devil, and I got news for the devil's people. That if you continue to stay on this path that you're on, you will see just exactly that. I'm going to end this for conscientious time's sake to my viewers that even take a little bit of time towards listening to any of the things that I got to say. I just hope and pray to God that people will be awakened and that they will make a spiritual commitment with God, for God, in God, of going back to the altar and getting their hearts and lives right before this thing breaks loose in a way like we've never seen before. You'd think that we've seen bad stuff in the past 5 years, in which we have. We have. Matter of fact, we've seen bad things in the past 30 years. If you go back and look at all of it, the big picture, 30 plus years since Ronald Reagan and the Bushes decided to do what they done towards taking this prophecy and shoving it off into the back burner, and not only acting like that it didn't occur, but then attacking the individual for it occurring, or in dereliction of duty, setting back and not doing nothing about the people that was attacking the person towards it happening to. This is justice. You're going to see what justice is one day. You're going to see what justice is one day pertaining to your works and your relationship in Christ. One day, whenever we all, including myself, will stand in front of the great I am, the great white throne judgment, and every person, according to the Bible, will be held accountable for their works. Now you may be saying, well, I haven't done nothing wrong. Well, okay, in one sense, maybe you didn't become a rapist or a murderer. But what did you do whenever you know that somebody did rape or murder somebody on your streets or on your city block or somewhere? Did you do the right thing by turning them in? Did you do the Good Samaritan thing by letting somebody know that a crime had been committed? So your works isn't just towards what you do, but it's towards what you don't do that you should have done. That's what I continue to keep telling people, and apparently I must be talking to a bunch of people that are incapable of understanding these things that I continue to keep telling them, because to this day I still don't have nobody knocking on my door. I still don't get no telephone calls. I still, as far as I know, do not have any true supporters. Now, I do have people out there that tell me, Dennis, we're praying for you. Okay, you'll remember me in your prayer. Dennis, we're doing this. Dennis, we're doing that. In other words, you're like a silent witness. But yet, no, I don't see no actions. You're still sitting on your hands. You're still not actually doing nothing. You're still not in the defense of justice. Regardless whether you support this particular ministry that I feel like God has orchestrated me to be a part of, or if you're supporting your own ministry, the bottom line is people are not speaking up. These internationally known preachers that could lead people in the right direction are not doing so. They're scared. They've been held hostage. They allow for their church members to blackmail them and tell them, if you continue to tell us these things that coming out of the Bible, we will get rid of you. We will vote you out of our lives. And you will struggle the rest of your life towards looking for another job. And this is justice? Good luck to all of us. I'm going to let this play just a little bit longer. I got things to have to do. And I'll let you decide towards whatever that you decide pertaining to right and wrong.
Including the First Amendment rights of all citizens.
You don't have a right if you're a criminal. You have just violated and thrown all your rights away. Okay? But yet now I can see where the politicians in America have failed the Americans, because if there was jobs available, good jobs, good paying jobs, these people wouldn't feel like that they had to go out and steal for survival purposes just to be able to survive. So where does the buck stop? Does it stop with the little guy, or does it stop with the big guy? Just like I said a while ago, the head of a fish is the beginning factors of its rotting. Actually, it's the gut of a fish, but they use the expression the head of a fish because usually the head of the fish is where you first start recognizing the decay of that particular fish. You usually start seeing its eyeballs start sinking in, and gnats and everything else getting around its mouth, and the next thing you know, it will become a skeleton in its head, and the body will still look good. Well, why is that? Well, that's the best place towards letting in oxygen, and of course bugs and gnats and stuff like that, they have to have oxygen to be able to live off of while they're eating. And what a better place to start is the head. Start at the eyes, go through the nose, go through the mouth. Once you have desecrated what meat that's on them bones, then you move over to another item, to another area, and start desecrating the other areas. That's the reason why they use the philosophy that it begins at the head. The rotten begins at the head. Just like in any type of organization pertaining to our government or any government, I'm going to use that. I don't want to just emphasize upon this government, but any government, it always begins at the head. Good luck to all of us. Good luck to all of us.
Department has been clear that expressing a political belief or ideology, no matter how vociferously, is not a crime. We do not investigate or prosecute people because of their views. Peacefully expressing a view or ideology, no matter how extreme, is protected by the First Amendment. But illegally threatening to harm or kill another person is not.
Right.
There is no First Amendment right to unlawfully threaten to harm or kill someone.
Right.
As Justice Scalia noted in RAV versus City of St. Paul, true threats of violence are outside the First Amendment.
Right.
Because laws that punish such threats, quote, protect individuals from the fear of violence, from the disruption that fear engenders, and from the possibility that the threatened violence will occur. The latter point hits particularly close to home for those of us who have investigated tragedies ranging from the Oklahoma City bombing to the January 6th attack on the Capitol. The time to address threats is when they are made, not after the tragedy has struck. As employees of the nation's largest law enforcement agency, each of us understands that we have an obligation to protect our citizens from violence and fear of violence, and we will continue to do our part to provide that protection. But the Justice Department cannot do it alone. The responsibility to bring an end to violence and threats of violence against those who serve the public is one that all Americans share. Such conduct disrupts the peace of our public spaces and undermines our democracy. We are all Americans. We must protect each other. The obligation to keep Americans and American democracy safe is part of the historical inheritance of this department. As I have noted several times before, a founding purpose of the Justice Department was to battle violent extremist attacks on our democratic institutions. In the midst of Reconstruction following the Civil War, the department's first principal task was to secure the civil rights promised by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. This meant protecting Black Americans seeking to exercise their right to vote from acts and threats of violence by white supremacists. The framers of the Civil War amendments recognized that access to the ballot is a fundamental aspect of citizenship and self-government. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 sought to make the promise of those amendments real. To do so, it gave the Justice Department valuable tools with which to protect the right to vote. In recent years, however, the protection of the Voting Rights Act have been drastically weakened. The Supreme Court's 2013 decision in the Shelby County case effectively eliminated the preclearance protections of Section 5, which had been the department's most effective tool for protecting voting rights over the past half-century. Subsequent decisions have substantially narrowed the reach of Section 2 as well. Since those decisions, there has been a dramatic increase in legislative enactments that make it harder for millions of eligible voters to vote and to elect representatives of their own choosing. Those enactments range from practices and procedures that make voting more difficult, to redistricting maps drawn to disadvantage both minorities and citizens of opposing political parties, to abnormal post-election audits that put the integrity of the voting process at risk, to changes in voting administration meant to diminish the authority of locally elected or nonpartisan election administrators. Some have even suggested permitting state legislators to set aside the choice of the voters themselves. As I noted in an address to the Civil Rights Division last June, many of those enactments have been justified by unfounded claims of material vote fraud in the 2020 election. Those claims, which have corroded people's faith in the legitimacy of our elections, have been repeatedly refuted by the law enforcement and intelligence agencies of both the last administration and this one, as well as by every court, federal and state, that has considered them. The Department of Justice will continue to do all it can to protect voting rights with the enforcement powers we have. It is essential that Congress act to give the department the powers we need to ensure that every eligible voter can cast a vote that counts. But as with violence and threats of violence, the Justice Department, even the Congress, cannot alone defend the right to vote. The responsibility to preserve democracy and to maintain faith in the legitimacy of its essential processes lies with every elected official and with every American. All Americans are entitled to free, fair, and secure elections that ensure they can select the representatives of their choice. All Americans are entitled to live in a country in which their public servants can go about their jobs of serving the public free from violence and unlawful threats of violence. And all Americans are entitled to live in a country in which the transition from one elected administration to the next is accomplished peacefully. The Justice Department will never stop working to defend the democracy to which all Americans are entitled. As I recognized when I spoke with you all last March, service in the Department of Justice is more than a job and more than an honor. It is a calling. Each of us, you and I, came to work here because we are committed to the rule of law and to seeking equal justice under law. We came to work here because we are committed to ensuring the civil rights and civil liberties of our people. We came to work here because we are committed to protecting our country, as our oath says, from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Together, we will continue to show the American people by word and by deed that these are the principles that underlie our work. The challenges that we have faced and that we will continue to face are extraordinarily, but I am moved and humbled by the extraordinary work you do every single day to meet them. I look forward to seeing more of you in person soon and to our continued work together. Thank you all.
There you have it. The silver tongue talker with the silver hair speaks good words, but at the same time, I resonate upon to the thoughts of my original people that white man speaketh with forked tongue. Their words have good intentions in theory, but in reality, what is the American people seeing? What is the American people seeing, not only on an upper scale level, but what is the American people seeing right down here in the counties? County for county for county, or parish for parish for parish, wherever you live. What are we seeing? What are we witnessing? We're witnessing somewhere between the 1%ers and the 4%ers that basically can pay their way out of crime, regardless of what crime, to the extent of maybe murder, okay? But then yet no, we're seeing the other 95, 96% that don't get treated that way. He's got good words. It's good in theory. But in reality, that is not what the American people have been experiencing. In addition to him bringing up Memphis, Tennessee, pertaining to Shelby County, in addition to people such as myself that has been lied upon again and again and again by various people trying to bring that type of destruction and character assassination upon the various people such as myself. And like I said a while ago,
The
I know for a
commemoration of the
fact,
January 6th attack a year ago.
I know for a fact that it's not just me. There's hundreds, thousands of people that have been roughed up by the system, knowing how corrupt that the system is. That's the reason why we've seen January 6th escalate into what it escalated into. No ifs, ands, buts about it. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, smells like a duck, acts like a duck, I've always been told odds are it's a duck. There had to be something that motivated the American people other than just Donald Trump and his administration that stirred the pot and made these people, some of them traveled for hundreds, if not thousands of miles, made great sacrifices to go up and try to, in their eyes, save our democracy. Not diminish it, not destroy it, but in their eyes, save the democracy, because they can see similar things towards what I can see in how corrupt that the true system has become. That's the reason why, in ending, okay, that's the reason why my brother and I keep emphasizing upon this fact, we put up a sign out there, was one of the first things that we done, and we planted these 4 posts right here, pertaining to a pole barn, and we put this cross up. This was one of the first attachments to this building that we done in identifying what our purpose and what our statement was towards the broken cross. We done it very, very professionally. We done it elegantly in 20 and 14. This is 20 and 22, so it's been up there for now 8 years. The building's still standing, pertaining to the harsh winds and et cetera, that's happened. May blow away tomorrow, but as of right now, after 8 years later, it's still standing. Wow. Imagine that. Cydonia. Imagine that, Kenton, Tennessee. Imagine that, Dresden and Martin in Dresden, Tennessee. Our statement still remains of the broken cross. The cross represents the system. The system is what crucified the Lord Jesus Christ. And behind the system was the people. The people at that time generated the system, influenced and enforced the system. Okay? So the cross in actuality don't have nothing to do with the salvation of humanity. It was what happened on the cross. It was why they crucified Christ to begin with, pertaining to it being an unjust due. Once our system becomes just as broken as the system was over in Jerusalem 2,000 plus years ago, then is when you have to worry about God allowing for the devil to unleash hell upon a society such as you or me or anybody else has ever witnessed in our lifetime. And if you continue on this path that you're on towards this injustice that surrounds now the wealthy, the conglomerates, surrounds the fortunate ones versus the unfortunate ones, the hases versus the has-nots, you're going to see more devastation, more hardship, more anguish, more pain, more agony. That's not going to be on account of God, but it's because those that was supposed to have been serving God was not serving God in an adequate, sufficient way. Whenever it gets to the point of what it is right now, that's whenever you have to worry about the elements of the heavens opening and God allowing for Satan to bring great wrath, just as it talks about in the Bible. For Satan will come down in great wrath because he knows that his time is short. Until we are willing to demonstrate the differences in our sincerity pertaining to our relationships with the Maker, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not only going to continue, but they're going to get worse and worse and worse and worse until one of those worst moments happens and the Father throws in the towel up in his kingdom and he says, go get my children, go gather up what elect are left here upon to the planet, and he will cast this planet Earth into tribulation, such as was not, according to the Bible, or ever shall be again. Woe be unto the inhabitants, the Bible says, whenever you shall start to witness the opening of the occurrences of the seals. And that's what we're witnessing. That's where we are. Have we went too far? Well, we're still here. We're still breathing. I don't believe that we've went too far that we can turn and we can go back, as the Bible talks about. But you have to see the manifestation of that. And as of right now, at 291 Thompson Road, to be quite honest with you, I haven't seen any positive effects since I've been back here now, since 2014. Wow, the truth hurts, doesn't it? The truth hurts. But the truth is what will take us into the future. Not a lie. Not condemnation by the rich or the witch. But trueness as far as our relationship with the Father, because the Bible says that the Father seeketh those who worship him in truth and in spirit. And if we're not doing it, folks, it's only our own faults that these incredible, harsh, supernatural events coming out of the skies towards either droughts, famines, floods, or contaminations of diseases or whatever, we're bringing it upon to ourselves. And it's people like myself. It's my responsibility to let you know what's going on. Now, you can punish me if you want to, in which I've been punished for the past 30 years towards being the messenger because they didn't like the message. You know, you can bring all kinds of horror into my personal life. But I promise you, you're not going to change the elements of the law, God's law, in regards towards what's going on right now. And until you're willing to do that, buckle down, get ready. The road's going to be hard, and it's even going to be harder. And if this is the path that you've chosen, you have no one to blame but yourselves, because I and people like me, towards putting out the message, have done our jobs as messengers. Thank you again for listening. Good luck to all of us. Good luck to each and every one of us. And as we end our program all the time, we want to end it by saying shalom, peace in Hebrew. And may God be with us all. And may God have mercy upon us all. And may God bless the American endeavors in the future. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who walks with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there. Precious Jesus, hold my hand. Thanks again.